So, the Cold War is what happened after World War II ended. So, we're gonna start by watching a video from Crash Course.
Hi, I'm John Green. This is Crash Course U.S. History, and today we're going to talk about the Cold War. The Cold War is called cold because it supposedly never heated up into actual armed conflict, which means, you know, that it wasn't a war.
Mr. Green, but the war on Christmas is a war, and the war on drugs is a war.
You're not going to hear me say this often in your life, me from the past, but that was a good point. At least the Cold War was not an attempt to make war on a noun, which almost never works because nouns are so resilient. And to be fair, the Cold War did involve quite a lot of actual war, from Korea to Afghanistan, as the world's two superpowers, the United States and the USSR, sought ideological and strategic influence throughout the world. So perhaps it's best to think of the Cold War as an era, lasting roughly from 1945 to 1990. Discussions of the Cold War tend to center on international and political history, and those are very important, which is why we've talked about them in the past. This, however, is United States history, so let us heroically gaze, as Americans so often do, at our own navel. Stan, why did you turn the globe to the green parts of not America? I mean, I guess to be fair, we were a little bit obsessed with this guy. So the Cold War gave us great spy novels, independence movements, and arms race cool movies like Dr. Strangelove and War Games, one of the most evil mustaches in history. But it also gave us a growing awareness that the greatest existential threat to human beings is ourselves. It changed the way we imagine the world and humanity's role in it. In his Nobel Prize acceptance speech, William Faulkner famously said, "Our tragedy today is a general and universal physical fear so long sustained by now that we can even bear it. There are no longer problems of the spirit. There is only the question, when will I be blown up?" So today we're going to look at how that came to be the dominant question of human existence and whether we can ever get past it. So after World War II, the US and the USSR were the only two nations with any power left. The United States was a lot stronger. We had atomic weapons, for starters, and also the Soviets had lost 20 million people in the war, and they were led by a sociopathic, mustachioed Joseph Stalin. But the US still had worries. We needed a strong, free market-oriented Europe, and to a lesser extent Asia, so that all the goods we were making could find happy homes. The Soviets, meanwhile, were concerned with something more immediate, a powerful Germany invading them again. Germany, and please do not take this personally, Germans, was very, very slow to learn the central lesson of world history: do not invade Russia, unless you're the Mongols. So at the end of World War II, the USSR encouraged the creation of pro-communist governments in Bulgaria, Romania, and Poland, which was a relatively easy thing to encourage because those nations were occupied by Soviet troops. The idea for the Soviets was to create a communist buffer between them and Germany, but to the US it looked like communism might just keep expanding, and that would be really bad for us because who would buy all of our sweet, sweet industrial goods? So America responded with the policy of containment, as introduced in diplomat George F. Kennan's famous Long Telegram. Communism could stay where it was, but it would not be allowed to spread. And ultimately, this is why we fought very real wars in both Korea and Vietnam. As a government report from 1950 put it, the goals of containment were: 1, block further expansion of Soviet power; 2, expose the falsities of Soviet pretensions; 3, induce a retraction of the Kremlin's control and influence; and 4, in general, foster the seeds of destruction within the Soviet system. Harry Truman, who, as you'll recall, became president in 1945 after Franklin Delano Pres-for-Life Roosevelt died, was a big fan of containment, and the first real test of it came in Greece and Turkey in 1947. This was a very strategically valuable region because it was near the Middle East, and I don't know if you've noticed this, but the United States has been just smidgey interested in the Middle East the last several decades because of oil, glorious oil! Right, so Truman announced the so-called Truman Doctrine because, you know, why not name a doctrine after yourself, in which he pledged to support, quote, freedom-loving peoples against communist threats, which is all fine and good, but who will protect us against peoples, the pluralization of an already plural noun? Anyway, we eventually sent $400 million in aid to Greece and Turkey, and we were off to the Cold War races. The Truman Doctrine created the language through which Americans would view the world, with America as free and communists as tyrannical. According to our old friend Eric Foner, the speech set a precedent for American assistance to anti-communist regimes throughout the world, no matter how undemocratic, and for the creation of a set of global military alliances directed against the Soviet Union. It also led to the creation of a new security apparatus, the National Security Council, the Central Intelligence Agency, the Atomic Energy Commission, all of which were somewhat immune from government oversight and definitely not democratically elected. And the containment policy and the Truman Doctrine also laid the foundations for a military buildup, an arms race, which would become a key feature of the Cold War. But it wasn't all about the military, at least at first. Like, the Marshall Plan was first introduced at Harvard's commencement address in June 1947 by, get this, George Marshall, in what turned out to be like the second most important commencement address in all of American history. Yes, Dan, okay. It was a great speech, thank you for noticing. All right, let's go to the thought bubble. The Marshall Plan was a response to economic chaos in Europe brought on by a particularly harsh winter that strengthened support for communism in France and Italy. The plan sought to use U.S. aid to combat the economic instability that provided fertile fields for communism. As Marshall said, our policy is not directed against any country or doctrine, but against hunger, poverty, desperation, and chaos. Basically, it was a new deal for Europe, and it worked. Western Europe was rebuilt so that by 1950, production levels in industry had eclipsed pre-war levels, and Europe was on its way to becoming a US-style capitalist mass consumer society, which it still is, kind of. Japan, although not technically part of the Marshall Plan, was also rebuilt. General Douglas MacArthur was basically the dictator there, forcing Japan to adopt a new constitution, giving women the vote, and pledging that Japan would forswear war, in exchange for which the United States effectively became Japan's defense force. This allowed Japan to spend its money on other things, like industry, which worked out really well for them. Meanwhile, Germany was experiencing the First Berlin Crisis. At the end of the war, Germany was divided into East and West, and even though the capital, Berlin, was entirely in the East, it was also divided into East and West. This meant that West Berlin was dependent on shipments of goods from West Germany through East Germany, and then in 1948, Stalin cut off the roads to West Berlin. So the Americans responded with an 11-month-long airlift of supplies that eventually led to Stalin lifting the blockade in 1948 and building the Berlin Wall, which stood until 1991 when Kool-Aid got... No, wait. That wasn't when the Berlin Wall was built. That was in 1961. I just wanted to give Thought Bubble the opportunity to make that joke. Thanks, Thought Bubble. So right, the wall wasn't built until 1961, but 1949 did see Germany officially split into two nations, and also the Soviets detonated their first atomic bomb, and NATO was established, and the Chinese Revolution ended in communist victory. So by the end of 1950, the contours of the Cold War had been established. West versus East, capitalist freedom versus communist totalitarianism. At least from where I'm sitting. Although now apparently I'm going to change where I'm sitting, because it's time for the mystery document. The rules here are simple. I guess the author of the mystery document, and about 55% of the time I get shocked by the shock pen. We must organize and enlist the energies and resources of the free world in a positive program for peace, which will frustrate the Kremlin design for world domination by creating a situation in the free world to which the Kremlin will be compelled to adjust. Without such a cooperative effort led by the United States, we will have to make gradual withdrawals under pressure until we discover one day that we have sacrificed positions of vital interest. It is imperative that this trend be reversed by a much more rapid and concerted buildup of the actual strength of both the United States and the other nations of the free world. I mean, all I can say about it is that it sounds American and like it was written in like 1951, and it seems kind of like a policy paper or something really boring. So I mean, yeah, I'm just gonna have to take the shot. Ah! National Security Council Report NSC 68. Are you kidding me, Stan? Not 64 or 81, 68? This is ridiculous. I call it injustice. Anyway, as the apparently wildly famous NSC 68 shows, the US government cast the Cold War as a rather epic struggle between freedom and tyranny, and that led to remarkable political consensus. Both Democrats and Republicans supported most aspects of Cold War policy, especially the military buildup part. Now, of course, there were some critics, like Walter Lippmann, who worried that casting foreign policy in such stark ideological terms would result in the U.S. getting on the wrong side of many conflicts, especially as former colonies sought to remove the bonds of empire and become independent nations. But yeah, no, nothing like that ever happened. Yeah, I mean, it's not like that happened in Iran or Nicaragua or Argentina or Brazil or Guatemala For Stan, you're really going to make me list all of them? Fine. Or Haiti, or Paraguay, or the Philippines, or Chile, or Iraq, or Indonesia, or Zaire. I'm sorry, there are a lot of them, okay? But these interventions were viewed as necessary to prevent the spread of communism, which was genuinely terrifying to people, and it's important to understand that. Like, national security agencies pushed Hollywood to produce anti-communist movies like The Red Menace, which scared people, and the CIA funded magazines, news broadcasts, concerts, art exhibitions that gave examples of American freedom. It even supported painters like Jackson Pollock in the Museum of Modern Art in New York, because American Expressionism was the vanguard of artistic freedom and the exact opposite of Soviet socialist realism. I mean, have you seen Soviet paintings? Look at the hardy ankles on these socialist comrade peasants. Also, because the Soviets were atheists, at least in theory, Congress in 1954 added the words "under God" to the Pledge of Allegiance as a sign of America's resistance to communism. The Cold War also shaped domestic policy. Anti-communist sentiment, for instance, prevented Truman from extending the social policies of the New Deal. The program that he dubbed the Fair Deal would have increased the minimum wage, extended national health insurance, and increased public housing, social security, and aid to education. But the American Medical Association lobbied against Truman's plan for national health insurance by calling it socialized medicine. And Congress was in no mood to pay money for socialized anything. That problem goes away. But the government did make some domestic investments as a result of the Cold War. In the name of national security, the government spent money on education, research and science, technology like computers, and transportation infrastructure. In fact, we largely have the Cold War to thank for our marvelous interstate highway system, although part of the reason Congress approved it was to set up speedy evacuation routes in the event of nuclear war. And speaking of nuclear war, it's worth noting that a big part of the reason the Soviets were able to develop nuclear weapons so quickly was thanks to espionage, like for instance by physicist and spy Klaus Fuchs. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Fuchs worked on the Manhattan Project and leaked information to the Soviets and then later helped the Chinese to build their first bomb. Julius Rosenberg also gave atomic secrets to the Soviets and was eventually executed, as was his less clearly guilty wife, Ethel. And it's important to remember all that when thinking about the United States' obsessive fear that there were communists in our midst. This began in 1947 with Truman's loyalty review system, which required government employees to prove their patriotism when accused of disloyalty. How do you prove your loyalty? Rat out your co-workers as communists. No, seriously though, that program never found any communists. This all culminated, of course, with the Red Scare and the rise of Wisconsin Senator Joseph McCarthy, an inveterate liar who became enormously powerful after announcing in February 1950 that he had a list of 205 communists who worked in the State Department. In fact, he had no such thing, and McCarthy never identified a single disloyal American, but the fear of communism continued. In 1951's Dennis versus United States, the Supreme Court upheld the notion that being a communist leader itself was a crime. In this climate of fear, any criticism of the government and its policies, or the US in general, was seen as disloyalty. There was only one question: when will I be blown up? And it encouraged loyalty because only the government could prevent the spread of communism and keep us from being blown up. We've talked a lot about different ways that Americans have imagined freedom this year, but this was a new definition of freedom. The government exists in part to keep us free from massive destruction. So the Cold War changed America profoundly. The US has remained a leader on the world stage and continued to build a large, powerful, and expensive national state, but it also changed the way we imagine what it means to be free and what it means to be safe. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week. Crash Course is created by all of these nice people, and it is possible because of you and your support through Subbable.com. Subbable is a crowdfunding website that allows you to support stuff you love on a monthly basis. Our Subbable subscribers...
Okay. So, at the end of World War II, people were scared. People were scared now that there was an atomic bomb. Who's going to build the next one? Who's going to drop it on America? What's going to happen next? People were fearful of communism. They saw what fascism did in Germany, and so starts the Cold War, which was started based on a lot of fear. So, what we're trying to figure out are the geopolitical consequences of the Cold War. So geopolitical is, you break it up, it sounds geo for geography, political for politics, and consequences is the result of an action. So there are different things that resulted politically and geographically as a result of, I love your mustache, that is merited. And Taylor scored one too, that's very nice. So, And Mr. Schrock does not have a mustache. So, in 1961, which was long after the Cold War started, a geopolitical consequence of the Cold War was the Berlin Wall. So how would you guys feel if suddenly somebody put a wall down the middle of this classroom? You can no longer see
That'd be so cool. I wouldn't
people
be
with
able
their
to see
mustaches on the other side of the class.
It'd be sad.
Sammy. I hate seeing Sammy every day.
Sad. You couldn't talk to them anymore.
Have the door.
That would really not be
Whoa! Whoa!
They would have the buckets and the kitty litter. But you guys wouldn't be able to text each other anymore. You wouldn't be able to hang out. You wouldn't be able to talk to each other. That's what happened when they put up the Berlin Wall. The Eastern and Western Berlin could no longer talk to each other. So if your grandmother lives in West Berlin and you live in East Berlin, you can no longer go over there to get cookies from your grandma. You can't go to dinner at your friend's house. It was.
That means we have to have friends for that.
Well, that's
you'd be on my
true.
side.
Yeah.
Oh, well, see, at least you guys see you're together. But what if all of a sudden,
Wait,
what if
Jacob
the wall
might not be on my
curved,
side.
and then the curve it was right through here?
Oh man.
Oh, man. So this is a picture of what the Berlin Wall looked like from one point of view.
Oh look, it curves.
It curves, see? It could curve right in between you guys. So these are some images that show the Berlin Wall. So this is right before they tore it down. And then this is after, what it looks like now. Here's another photo of a before and after when J.F. Kennedy went to visit the Berlin Wall to kind of assess what was going on. And then this is what it looks like today. And some people think that JFK was assassinated for communist reasons. We will never know the truth about JFK. But here's a before and after.
Wait, what does that say?
What does this say? I don't know. I don't read German.
Starts with a D.
Yeah.
With an S, and it says Holland at the bottom.
That's right.
How do you know?
So here's another one that, like the picture we saw before. Here's before, and then this is what it looks like now. So see, now it's all pretty and friendly. What happened? All right. So what was the Berlin blockade? Would anyone like to volunteer to read this slide for the class? Please.
The Berlin blockade was an attempt in 1948 by the Soviet Union to limit the ability of France, Great Britain, and the United States to travel to their sectors of Berlin, which lay within Russian-occupied East Germany. Eventually, the Western powers instituted an airlift that lasted nearly a year and delivered much-needed supplies and relief to West Berlin. Coming just 3 years after the end of World War II, the blockade was just the first major clash of the Cold War and foreshadowed future conflict over the city of Berlin.
So imagine that people needed supplies and help in West Berlin. So did you guys see the Hunger Games where they dropped those little presents with the parachutes when they needed medication or whatever? Sort of the same idea, but you know, they don't blow up. And they weren't fighting each other as children to the death. But they were dropping packages to help these people and they had parachutes on them. So here's a world map. Does anyone know where Germany is on the world map? Right here. In Germany.
Right next to
In Germany. Next to Pole, France, and then F.
Thank you.
It looks like
Ger. So here is what, hold on, I think I've kind of marked on here. Hang on. Okay, so this is Germany before World War II, and here's Poland and the Netherlands and Hungary. This is during World War II, when Germany decided they were gonna try to take over everything. See, they even took over part of Russia. Because here it's, you see the Soviets, and here they're backed up a little bit. So after World War II, everyone decided, those Germans, they've had 2 world wars. We can't trust them anymore. We're taking away Germany, and we're gonna take over it, because they don't know how to handle themselves. So this is what it looked like after World War II. Here's poor little Germany. It didn't even have a name on it in this map. Here's what all of the Soviets got over here. And then the rest was broken up.
So what did they call it then?
Well, they called it Germany. I'm just saying on that map, they just said, no, we're not gonna put the name on there because it was divided up. So we have East Germany, we have Britain has this part of West Germany, then France has these blue areas, and the US has this area. And then in here, all the way in here is Berlin. And that looks like the peacock from NBC over here. And it's again split up. And I again hit that thing. So here's inside Berlin. So this is all the Soviets, France, Britain, and the US. So in order for us to help our people from here to this little orange spot there, we have to figure out a way to help those people. There's this area that is split up is inside Soviet territory. So what we're going to do is we're going to break into groups, and each group is going to pick a topic to research that you're going to explain to the class through your own little presentation tomorrow at the beginning of class. So I don't want the groups any bigger than 4 people. If you want to work by yourself, that's okay. So once you guys break into your groups, you'll get a graphic organizer. It looks like this. You'll put your whatever topic you choose, what it was, when it was, where it was, and maybe find anything interesting. And on the back, you're going to write about how you felt it affected people. So how, for example, if you're looking at the Truman Doctrine, who did that affect and how did those people feel about it? And then if you have a visual, like a picture or a map of what you're talking about, then you can email it to me and we'll use it for your presentation tomorrow. So first thing we need to do is you guys break into groups, and one person from each group will we'll get this graphic organizer, make sure you put everyone's name on it in your group, and then come up and only each group gets to pick one topic. No group will have 2 of the same topic. So get in your group and get your graphic organizer and come up and tell me what you want. All right. I'll just read the. Oh, that's okay.
Either you can.
Okay, does everyone have a topic that they're going to research? So make sure in your group you have someone who's gonna present to the class. You have someone who's gonna write down the information, and you have your people who are researching. So if you're writing, you don't necessarily have to be researching. Someone else will be telling you what to write. But you all need to work together, and also I want you guys to try to come up with an image to show what you're explaining. All right. Did you guys pick a group? So you're gonna write how the U.S. was affected by no, that's by the mall. I know what that
Better not be messing with my stuff or
I guess he wrote it. He will not anymore.
That's him. I thought it was him. They don't actually know. I was like, that's cute. Did they just get
You guys draw everybody yourself.
Hi. I was talking to Mrs. Schrock today, and she felt hurt that I didn't show her my proposal before you. She got mad. She's like, why didn't you show me first? I was like, where did you hear this? She was like, Mrs. Schrock told me.
I can write.
No, you
No, my mom doesn't go here.
That's good.
Alright, so all the groups have a topic? Everyone's good now? Yes. Alright, so I'm gonna switch.
I can be
Yes, what is that? So what is it like there? So do they have to be Bam. Okay, so for yours, here's the U.S. Congress. So, you could just do like, what happened in the U.S. during the Cold War, the date of the Cold War.
I had the staples.
Yeah, me too. I got staples.
What did you have like? I had like 8 of them. I was little. My dad was
I don't know, maybe there's a way you could integrate.
I didn't take any. Are you kidding me? But I was
No way.
and then like card, you know, like Flintstone pad where you put one of them.
Oh, no, you broke your ankle.
And I was going on the back of the car and it flipped over into my head onto some bricks.
It is important stuff.
Jump over.
It's not?
Or
I like the first one.
this one?
Take answers as soon as I said we can't selfie. I said 20 like ugly selfies.
Oh my gosh.
No, like
How
that.
did you ever figure that out? That is so important. So how's it going over here, Berlin's crisis?
They're in a crisis.
They're researcher, reporter. I'm
Share your knowledge with the class.
Where you at?
Look, I got a picture from this bracelet.
Taking selfies every day.
I just got really bad looking. I sent it to you.
I'm filming the woman over there.
Is the Truman Doctrine still in place today? Good? You're good? Yeah. All right.
From one side of the room to Oh, yeah.
Not anymore.
I cut a huge section of my hair out last night. I cried. My hair was yeah, so
It's
what
like
is
weird, like, we're in some hair, but
It'll be all right.
I asked you this already, and everyone's like, oh my god.
At the end of the day, we're all running out of
I had to start my third water.
My friend was like a hole in water.
In a lot.
A whole like.
I don't know.
Is that gonna be your picture when I'm rewarded?
Why not?
I just saved it.
No way that you could Yes, you would.
What do you think it's all about?
Where am I sitting?
Wait.
Oh my god.
What? I'm gonna take a leap.
Guys,
I have no idea.
all my friends are guys.
Yours is like off. Just hands anymore.
Oh,
That's right.
I didn't have to do that.
Like, why is it history today?
Is it here today? He's enjoying his picture.
Who do you think they're gonna go up against?
No,
I guess we're
He's checking out the decorations.
Kings and Cavs?
have you observed like
Look at
that?
that.
Oh,
Maybe could be Sharks and Red Wings. Getting the no, that never happened.
Is there any fun draft?
Oh, Caps are gonna win it.
Alright.
¿Esos dos?
Oh my god.
Well, they should get the medals. I don't know, I would rather eat hot sauce.
Creo que con eso tardaron Mira si yo
Write something about that. There's lots of interesting stuff about it. I think the one know what's going on over there, Taylor. If you're that hungry,
I don't want it.
There's some white things back here.
¿Cómo que se había ayudaron a derribar el muro de aquí?
Yes.
No.
Okay, so you write, and it doesn't include it, or you could list countries that are, still communist countries, or you could say something about how when the Iron Curtain finally were allowed to go back into Russia. Come up with something.
Name what?
Sí, ellos ayudaron a dice, y la reconstrucción del pueblo. So ellos también de la
¿Sabes cómo le viene bien mal? Te preguntaba.
But your topic is martial law, so you can write if it's still, we still have the Marshall Plan today, or you still write.
They have ones that are like white shoes, like
Anything that you think that goes on today that might be similar to Marshall Plan?
Oh,
Okay?
and the Marshall Plan helped
That it helped put down the Berlin Wall? Is that what it said when you guys looked it up? Okay, then you wanna write that in there, okay? I like how this classroom is loud, and alternate.
Oh, Becky, that was right.
Kind of freaks me out.
He's so big, my hands really dry, I need lotion.
Look, do you see this?
Catching this. Sending it through soap, because I might be allergic.
I know.
Yeah.
I guess
For real though, I might be allergic to this. Me and my sensitive skin.
Just go in over here. Can you? You don't have to, it's just this. Just let me know.
That's literally all I can do here.
Does NATO
No, it's not
supposed
even like that, it's just like I'm doing so easily now.
Totally. Like, why? What's up? Why? Something. Well, look it up. Find some, back it up with some evidence.
I mean, it's chill because when we graduate, I'll be 18 for literally like 8 years.
What?
Who's this?
Oh, so close. And then Jacob is broken and no,
So you guys didn't find anything to write on the back
Oh, it's
about,
Becky.
like, maybe how the Berlin crisis affected. Write it on the back, okay? How did the crisis affect? And then you have a picture, find a picture, anything. Oh, that's right, I forgot, you have your, you do have a picture, so you're good. You're golden, you're golden.
Okay, give me what's the pen.
So you guys have about 10 minutes left. So make sure you know who's gonna be your presenter tomorrow. Make sure all your names are on the graphic organizer.
What's wrong? Are you nervous?
Read off of it. And tomorrow, you guys We'll take notes on other people's presentations. Each other about topics. I know, but I can't hold it. Hey.
Solo en uno estudia algo. Ya solo en uno estudia en el otro no. Alejandro en uno
Whoever who gets one is gonna be sent.
I need a pen.
Draw sharp.
For what?
Pick one. No, let's do it again. Todo.
Oh, so we're just like,
Just in this thing. Recovery on Europe.
Does anybody have any questions about what they're working on?
Other things. Large?
Everyone's YouTube program?
It's not walls.